Welcome to the podcast, Happy and Single. I'm your host, Joseph Anderson. You can find me on Instagram at the It's Possible Guy. You can find our podcast Instagram at Happy and Single. So today's episode 49, and it's entitled, What is My Life Purpose? But not what you think. So before you turn it off and think it's one of those things of, okay, you've got to find your life purpose, it's actually not. So this episode is actually inspired. I literally just finished watching the movie Soul. And it's the second time I've seen it. And I love that movie. I think it is such a beautiful, beautiful movie. So what is your life purpose? Your life purpose isn't what everyone thinks it is. Like, what is the purpose of living to live? It's to go do all of the things that you really want to do. You know, and in the movie, there's what they call lost souls. And they basically turn into these monsters that, these giant monsters that are just traversing because they're so focused on one thing and they can't either figure out how to do it, or they're so focused on figuring out what their one thing is. Because how much more freedom would each of you have in your life if you simply let yourself just live? If you didn't have to figure out, okay, what's my life purpose? If something strikes you, and if something speaks to you, of course, go in that direction. But there's different levels of speaking. Sometimes I can hear things from a megaphone. Other times I can hear them from a giant loudspeaker. And other times I hear a whisper. Follow your joy. What if you took the pressure off of yourself of trying to figure out what is your life, your entire life purpose today? I don't think that's how it works. There are so many things that we really want to do. In the book, The Artist Way, Julia Cameron talks about and says, if you had 5 lifetimes to live, what would you do? And then again, if you had another 5 lifetimes to live, what would you do? You could actually probably do so much more just by playing. So one of the reasons that I call myself the It's Possible Guy is, well, first of all, I felt that was what I needed to do. But now that I think about it, it's even more than that. It's because, guess what? I have given myself permission to do anything that I want to do. If I want to write a book, I'm going to write a book. I've already written a book. I'm in the editing process and haven't published it. If I want to be a singer, I'm going to sing. I've also done a little bit of that. If I want to act, I'm going to do that. Like, what if there was nothing that was off limits in your life? Aside from things that might hurt somebody else. But aside from that, like, what if there was nothing off limits in your life? What if, like, the world, forgive the phrase, was your oyster, and you could do anything that you wanted to do? As I was watching that movie today, I realized how, there's probably plenty of times I even get people in their head. They're like, well, I don't know if this is what I want to do. And it's like, okay, well, what's your life purpose? What is your passion? What do you want to do? If you don't know what you want to do for your life, what do you want to do even in this moment? And even if you looked at it and like you look around at other people and you say, oh my goodness, that would be super fun to do. There was a siren just passing. The house that I'm staying in isn't far away from a medical center. And one of the points in the movie when this character actually dies, and you guys may even hear sirens in the background. I don't know. And I don't know if they're going to keep going off, but there's this point when he's able to basically see the haul of his life. All of these achievements lined up in a row of what he'd done. And there were parts of him just sitting there watching TV. And he didn't have a happy expression on his face. I think so often we get frustrated because we're not making as much progress as we think we're supposed to be making. And we get discouraged and we just stop altogether. Kind of like they talk about with those lost souls of we just become, frustrated and upset that we're not progressing as fast as we want to. Guys, some things take a while. Whatever you're working on right now, I bet you're doing such a wonderful and amazing job. Be easy on yourself. And if you're enjoying the days of your life for the most part, that's awesome. And if you're not, you have the opportunity to change. I could tell you guys just from, there's a lot of things, if you wanted to, you could do right away. And sometimes we think that whatever our thing is, or whatever it is we really want to do with our life, isn't good enough for the people around us. And if you feel that way, I've had certain of those struggles throughout my life too. I have people close to me that don't really support what I do. But does that matter? It stings sometimes. But does it really matter? No. It only feels like it matters because we're like, oh, these people should appreciate and accept what I'm doing. Everybody's got their own designs. And you know what? I love that. So there's a part in the movie Soul that the character's talking to his mom, and I'm trying to share, some of these lessons without, ruining the movie, since, it's really a cool one to watch. But there's a moment when he really connects with his mom, and he really understands why she wanted him to get a regular job per se. The people that are around you actually do want what's best for you. It's just so hard for some of them to see how anything's going to work out. But none of us know how anything's going to work out anyways. There are people you're going to meet today that might introduce you to someone really cool down the road. I mean, one of my mentors that's a very, very successful author was introduced me to someone years after a failed business venture. We don't know how everything's going to work out. We act like everything is life and death when things just don't matter. The exact thing we're doing in this moment oftentimes doesn't matter. But we think so much about the question, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? This isn't working. It can't be the right thing. And plenty of the people around us will tell us that too. Oh, what you're working on can't be the right thing because it's not working. In the book On Writing by Stephen King, he tells his story. When Stephen King wrote Carrie, first of all, so I haven't read that, but just the story about it I think is really cool. When he first wrote Carrie, he threw it in the trash, and his wife actually picked it out and said, hey, this is good. So if Stephen King doubts himself, and that was his very first book, every single one of us is going to have imposter syndrome at whatever we're doing. We're going to say, I'm not good enough. And that crazy leprechaun voice will definitely tell you you're not good enough. And I really do, as I've shared before, I believe that they're the same way I believe in a God, I believe in an adversary, and I believe according to Revelations, he's got a third of the entire host of heaven that got thrown down here to earth with him that are all messing with us. So when you think, oh my goodness, why can't I get out of my head? Sometimes, I've had experiences where you just kind of tell them to go away, and all of a sudden you feel lighter and happier. I don't expect you guys to believe what I believe. I'm just sharing with you what I have found super helpful to understand. But there's always going to be that voice. And there's a moment where one of the characters in the movie, she has all of these dark voices come in and say, oh, you could never do this, and you could never do this, and you could never do this. So what? And I love, on that note, and then I'll come back, but on the note of that, Vincent van Gogh said, if a voice inside tells you you're not a painter, paint, and the voice will be silence. It's really hard for the voice to tell us we're not doing something when we actively are. And maybe you're not getting as far as you want, as fast as you want, but it doesn't matter. You get to decide the way you live your life. You get to decide what's going to make you happy. But the question always of, am I doing the right thing, is not helpful. And there's no judgment because, believe me, I have asked that question so many times. And I've had other people ask it for me. So what? We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and sometimes we're going to get frustrated. Sometimes we're going to get upset, and sometimes we're not going to know whatsoever what we're doing. And guys, it's okay. I want you to really know that. When you get to those moments of, what in the world am I doing with my life? You're just human. And you're just having a rough day. Whenever you start going down that path, I'd highly recommend that you just breathe. Because the further you go down that rabbit hole, the harder it is to come out, just from my own experience. And sometimes it can be really hard. What if you just believed that you really were guided moment by moment? By Heavenly Father, God, the Spirit, the inner voice, whatever it is you want to call it. What if you truly believe that you were guided by that every moment of your life? And what if some things really don't matter? I don't know every single person's. I really do. I believe we do have certain missions that we've been sent to this earth to complete. But I don't know if we know them all. I'm thinking, this is kind of a cool analogy. I'm kind of thinking of a secret agent. You picture a secret agent. Well, he gets one mission, and he completes that mission, and he gets another. Maybe we have to stop worrying so much about, what is my life purpose? What is my life mission? If we're just listening to that spirit moment by moment, we're going to be guided and directed. And we make up all kinds of crazy rules in our heads. It's like, well, if this was supposed to be the thing, it's going to work. Well, if this is the right thing, then I'm going to do this, and this is going to happen. The only thing you get to decide what you do about is showing up. If you show up, you're going to get better at whatever it is. Now, I do believe we are all naturally talented in different areas. I really do believe that. One of my former clients was a very incredible piano player. Amazing piano player. And he does so many cool things. I don't know how long I'd have to play the piano for to learn that. And it's a little bit like Groundhog Day. Bill Murray walks into a party, and all of a sudden, according to one thing, he'd spent 10,000 years or something in there. That was one possible storyline. I don't remember the exact number, but Yeah, when you have a lot of time, you can use a lot of time. We have a finite amount of time, and there is one day that we will leave this earth. And the only question that matters is, are you going to live up until that point? There's a Peanuts comic that I believe it's Charlie Brown saying to Snoopy, he's like, Snoopy, one day we're going to die. And Snoopy's like, yes, but every other day we get to live. I guess Snoopy's like this super wise sage because he usually says all this really wise stuff. And there's another quote off of Soul that says this little fish is talking to a bigger fish and said, hey, I'm looking for the ocean. And the older fish says, you're in it. And the little fish says, no, this is water. Guys, you are living your lives. Your life purpose is to live life every day the best that you can and do the things that you want to do. And the more you show up in the game, whatever game you want to play in life, the more you're going to be guided and directed. Like, I really do believe that. Because when we're doing, that's oftentimes when we're learning. There's so many things that each of us can do. So recently I had to edit an interview that I did. And when I edited that interview, I learned how to do video editing. And funny enough, it really wasn't that hard at all. To do like the basics of video editing. I'm not talking I did anything incredible or amazing in that particular thing. Everything you want to do is so much more possible than you guys could imagine. You could pick up a guitar today, and you could probably learn 2 or 3 chords over the week. You really could. I mean, it's really funny because we forget how challenging things were. When I first picked up a guitar over 20 years ago, I vaguely remember how challenging it was to go from C to D to G. And there's a part of us that thinks, there's no way that I could ever get better at this. Anything you show up for, you will get better at. That's just the way it works. That's just this thing we call life, guys. I don't know who started this thing about each and every one of us having to have some sort of specific life purpose. I definitely haven't helped. If something speaks to you, even for a moment, go play with it and see if it connects. There's a cool scene in the movie Soul where they go to this place called the Room of Everything or something like that. And there's literally everything in there. There's, things to bake, just everything you could think of. And they go in there and just play around. They play around in this room of everything. And all of a sudden they get a spark and they're like, oh, I do want to try more of this. And then they get their they call them Earth passes to be able to come to Earth. And then they come down. And I've got to be honest, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I do believe we have certain missions. But it's often when we're in the field working. There's a man named, this is a quote by a man named Richard G. Scott that said, it's often in the field we're working when God answers our prayers. It's when we're in the act of doing. I mean, I shared briefly, the example, or on the last podcast of, selling the house. And at first being like, okay, cool. Well, we're just going to put signs up and everybody's going to come. And then, oh, cool, we're going to put signs with balloons and more people are going to come. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to call all the realtors. We just learn as we go. But guys, the more we focus on that question of what is my life purpose, it is debilitating. I remember for years focusing on that question where at the very same moment, if I would have just paid attention, my life purpose was following me around like a stray dog. It really was. I mean, there's a song that says, it's called What is My Mission in Life? And I would sing that at the top of my lungs, thinking, what is my mission, when it was trailing me the entire time. I mean, I've known what there's been a glimpse of knowing that I was going to do what I'm doing now. But even more than that, like, I love coaching. But as much as I love coaching, I also love living. I really enjoy sitting and playing the guitar, especially when my fingers start to play the right notes. I really enjoy drawing. I really enjoy doing a lot of these things. I know this is going to sound super corny, but every single one of us can be an It's Possible person. Every single one of us. All it takes is showing up. That's all it takes, is saying, I want to do this, and going to do it. I really do believe that, guys. Everything you want is possible. I don't know what you want to do. And as I share many times, if you guys want to come talk to me specifically, every Monday morning, or at least most Monday mornings, I have a free hour that anybody can come on and receive free one-on-one coaching with me. But you just got to start. Sometimes you just got to start to get your spark. It's like when I go to the gym sometimes I have no desire to be there whatsoever. But after a while of just lifting in the weights and getting in the motion, I get there. I get to that place and it's like, awesome, I'm so glad I came. But if you never get yourself in motion, well, I'm kind of picturing now, like sometimes when people get out of bed, especially in the winter, their muscles are super tight. And they're like, oh my goodness, my muscles are way too tight to get out of bed and walk. But what happens when you get out of bed and walk? Well, all of a sudden, your muscles relax. Your muscles stretch out a little bit. That's what happens with us, guys. Pick something that you want to do for the next even day and go play with it. I mean, if you want to write a book, sit down and write a book. And you're going to have thinking in your head. I love the song Home by Philip Phillips. It says, settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble, it might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm going to make this place your home. Guys, and we don't even have to make a place home. We are already home. You can have a beautiful experience by just sitting and being present. You're going to have thinking come up in your head. That's just part of life. But the less we pay attention to it and the more we just understand, like here he says, as we roll down this unfamiliar road, yeah, like a lot of life is unfamiliar. And the people that learn the most are the ones that just dive in. You know, I heard this story about this class. It was a photography class. And I don't know if this is true or not, but it definitely illustrates an excellent point. And the teacher said to half of the class, okay, you are going to be judged on quantity. Your grade is going to be entirely based on quantity. And the other half of the class was based on quality. Well, who do you think got better? The people that focused on quality or the people that focused on quantity? If you guessed the people that focused on quantity, you'd be right. Because they just went off and they took a bunch of pictures. They were taking pictures of everything. Well, the more you take pictures of everything, the better you're going to get. Guys, what if you just approached your life like a little kid playing? Like just having fun and not worrying. Things are not life and death. This life is meant to be a gift. It's meant to be a great experience. It's meant to be an experiment. You can go out, you can experiment with anything that you want. And then when you come across something that you really love, awesome. You can devote even more time to that. You're going to figure more things out by staying in the game of life than you are by thinking, I must know this much about life before I start. I must know everything. You're already swimming in this glorious thing that you call life. And you don't have to have this big life purpose. You can. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just saying so many people are so paralyzed by the question, what should I do with the rest of my life? You should live. And when you enjoy something, you should do that. And play with that. And if you stop enjoying something, and you can stop or you can keep going. It depends whether it's like, I really, really don't enjoy this, or I hit a bit of turbulence and this got a bit hard. Could you imagine if you didn't have to have all the thinking that happens around the question of what do I do with the rest of my life? That's almost the same thing as somebody on a first date being like, hey, will you marry me? Forever. Nobody else, never met them. You're just like, okay, this is it. You don't have to do it, guys. I mean, what's one tiny thing that you really, really would love to explore? Go play with that. I really do. I believe, our inner voice sort of calls to us and says, hey, this little thing might be fun. And I'm not saying that it's telling you your life purpose. It's just saying, hey, you might enjoy that. Go play with that. And who knows, you might be really, really good at it too. We worry so much more about fighting these, as the song by Philip Phillips says, these demons in our head. Guys, you don't have to do it. Every single one of us has thinking about things we should do or shouldn't do or should have done. Oh, if only I would have understood this years ago, my life would be so much different. It's a little bit like the song God Bless the Broken Road by Rascal Flatts, where he says, man, I wish... So he says, I think about the years I spent just passing through. I'd like to have the time I lost and give it back to you. But you just smile and take my hand. You've been there, you understand. It's all part of a grander plan that is coming true. Well, yeah, we'd love to have some of the years back. I mean, some of the stuff I know now, it's like, oh my goodness. If I would have just spent 21 minutes a day on the thing that I love every day, I would be a pretty killer rock star right now. Even just 21 minutes a day. But I love that. Just smile, take my hand. You've been there, you understand. Every single one of us goes through that phase. We all go through that phase of, ah! Yes, that is a proper term. Ah! The second one sounded a lot more like a pirate. But we do, we just go to that place. Like, dang it, why couldn't have I understood this earlier? Why couldn't have I understood it when I was younger? And it actually really, the hilarity of that didn't click for me until I met someone and, just kind of that understands this basic understanding of, yeah, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we have thoughts that pass through our head, and we have a lot of thinking, and the more that we show up, the better our lives are going to be. But this individual happened to be like 20 years old, and even she was like, "Oh, are you kidding me? I wish I would have known this when I was 16." And that's when I just began to laugh, because it was like, well, here I am wishing I'd known it years ago, and here she is wishing she's known it when she was 16, and there's probably some 16-year-old out there that's like, oh, I wish I knew this when I was 12. So I guess it goes back far and far away. But it doesn't help us to get lost in that thinking. That's just our crazy leprechaun thinking that we get lost in. And it's so clever. The only thing you have control of is from this second forward. That's it. You can only learn from your past. It doesn't do very good to dwell there. And I think there's a part of that just lets in grace. Just have more grace with ourselves and say, hey, you know what? Like, you did the best you knew with what you knew back then. There's a guy that basically says something to the extent of, if you've been walking around in the dark for many years, you can either be really grateful when somebody does turn on the lights, or you can be frustrated and upset. And there's another quote that says, where every one of us is halfway up the ladder of enlightenment. Meaning, if there is no maximum any of us can hit in understanding ourselves and in understanding the stuff that we're talking about. So, like, no matter what, we're always going to be halfway up. But it is a much more joyful experience on the ladder of enlightenment, per se. And by ladder of enlightenment, I just mean understanding. But the more that each of us listens to this inner voice, the better our lives are going to be. There was this sticker. So there was a sticker with Pinocchio, and he actually had Geppetto holding, and it had strings next to him. And I actually cut the sticker in half. And what it was a representation of is cutting all the strings. From people, thoughts, thinking, feeling, anything from the past whatsoever. Every one of us allows that thinking of our past to control us. You can't do anything about it, guys. I'm sorry. We just can't. And no matter how much you think about it, no matter how much you want to change it, you cannot change your past. But you can change your future. And you can even change your present moment. How? By simply showing up. The more that you show up and just live your life every single day. Like, my little nephew called me, he portaled me the other day, and he was just super, super happy. He had this big smile, and he showed me, he showed me a new pair of shoes that he got, and he's like, oh, look what Mom you got me. And he was just thrilled. He was just thrilled. And sometimes we'll just sit there laughing at each other, and he's like, She's like, why are you laughing at me? And he's laughing at the same time he says it. And I'm just like, because you make me happy. And he knows I'm not laughing at him, but he just makes me smile. What if you treated your life like a little kid just experimenting? I know some of you may think, oh my goodness, if I did that, it would be unrealistic and not very responsible. Guys, the most responsible thing that each of us can ever do is just listen to this inner voice. There's a scripture that came to my mind at church, and it said, and we will send them to earth and prove them herewith. Okay, here it is. So it says, and we will prove them herewith to see if they will do all things whatsoever the Lord their God shall command them. I love that. I just felt that I should look up dwell, and there's the obvious one, which is basically to live in or at a specified place. But there's a technical noun called dwell that says a slight regular pause in the motion of a machine. I think that's really cool. Each of us are so on automatic. We are in this machine and we're thinking, I got to go faster. I got to make more and more money. I got to do this. I got to do this other. Every one of us is so taken care of and we don't realize that. When J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter, she did it when she was on the equivalent of government assistance. But she made it, and now she did really, really well. As long as we're paying attention to that inner voice and doing the best we can to follow its guidance, we're going to be taken care of, guys. We're so worried about, oh my goodness, but what if this happens? What if I lose this job? We're all like, when somebody gets a really, really great job, like an amazing job in one of like the massive firms, and they buy the really expensive car and they offer them all this money, they call it golden handcuffs. Why? Because they've provided them a life that would be challenging for them to earn otherwise, and no matter what, they feel like they have to stay with the company. The company knows exactly what they're doing. They're handcuffing the person to that job. But they're also spending most of their waking life working that job. Like hours and hours and hours working that job. And every single one of us has work to do. And some of us are probably like, hey, I'll take golden handcuffs. Handcuff me to that job. But when we understand, there's a scripture that says, consider the lilies, see how they grow. They don't toil, they don't labor, they don't do anything. They just show up and they're taken care of. And so are each of you. Your lives are unfolding. I love this song by Stephen Curtis Chapman called Glorious Unfolding. And especially at times in my life when things have been rough, that song has provided me so much comfort. Because your lives are unfolding. And we keep thinking, oh my goodness, tell me the next part. Tell me the climax of my life. You like a good story? We're like, tell me the really good part. We don't need to know. And we worry so much about getting to different places in our story. It's like, well, when am I going to get married? When am I going to meet my person? When's this going to happen? Why hasn't this happened yet? Have you guys ever read a book and been like, why hasn't this happened yet to this character? I don't think I have. We just get engulfed and engaged in the story. What if each of you got so engaged in your story that it didn't matter what was happening? Like, there was a podcast I did a while back that basically said, live as if you're going to be single forever. Guys, what if we just got so engaged in our story it didn't matter? And when somebody came along that was so amazing and so awesome that we couldn't bear without them, cool, then we add them to our story. But until then, that we just started living a life that we really, really, really wanted to live. That was so fun, so enjoyable, so exciting. It was our life. And maybe, just maybe, as you're living that type of life, where you're just showing up and playing. I mean, when you went to a friend's house when you were younger, did you walk over and be like, okay, so here's the deal. You and I, we're going to sit down, we're going to play, and we're going to play this game, we're going to play this game, and I've got to feel this way. I must win when we're playing Monopoly. Like, we didn't do that. We just went and we played. We just played. Guys, the mission of your life is to play. And the more we play, the more guidance and direction we're going to get on funner areas to play that are also going to help people out. I'm thinking of that quote by Leo Tolstoy that basically says, like, when we're on this earth, like, I have the choice whether to do good for God and for myself and basically for other people, or to not. So we have a choice when we just show up and when we play, when we get excited. I mean, people have seen some of the Simpsons drawings that I've done, and they're like, whoa, you did that? Yeah. And then I'm like, and it took this long. It took like 20-something hours. Who cares? We watch 20 hours of TV in a week. Well, I like what Steve Chandler says. It's important that we spend time on this side of the glass. What would be just fun to experiment with, guys? I'm not saying to choose for your life mission. What would be something that would be super fun to learn? I mean, maybe you want to take a baking class. Maybe you want to take a hockey class. Maybe I don't know what you want to take. But you only get one shot at this life. I mean, I have heard from people that have these near-death-like experiences that they really do feel like they get a second shot at life. And you hear them talk about it so differently. Guys, this is your shot at life. And this is your only shot at life. So go live. I mean, the word life comes from live or vice versa. I'm not that type of language person, but live your adventure. Don't sit around waiting for your adventure to happen to you. Live your adventure. If you want to write a book, write a book. If you want to play a song, play a song. If you want to write a song, write a song. If you want to act, go pick up an acting book or take some acting classes. If you want to do some art projects, go get some supplies. If you want to color, go get a coloring book and some crayons. This is your life, and your life mission is to live. And the more you live, the more you're going to help other people, the more you're going to serve other people, and the more you're going to help yourself as well. So this is my invitation to you today. My invitation to you is pick one single thing that would just be fun to explore. It's not, I want to do this because it's going to help me make billions of dollars. It's, I want to play with this because it'd be really cool. What would just be super fun for you guys? If you want to take on extra credit, like, what would make your life Disneyland? Like, what things do you want to have happen every day in your life that would make your life awesome? And sit down and write those down and then do them. I was just going to wrap up there. You guys probably could tell that, but I felt there was something else I needed to leave you guys with. And these are the lyrics from the song Meant to Live by Switchfoot. And it says, fumbling his confidence and wondering why the world has passed him by, hoping that he's bent for more than arguments and failed attempts to fly. We were meant to live for so much more. Have we lost ourselves? Somewhere we live inside. Somewhere we live inside. We were meant to live for so much more. Have we lost ourselves? Dreaming about providence and whether mice and men have second tries. Maybe we've been living with our eyes half open. Maybe we've been bent and broken. We were meant to live for so much more. Have we lost ourselves? Somewhere we live inside. Somewhere we live inside. We want more than this world's got to offer. We want more than the wars of our fathers and everything inside screams for second life. We were meant to live for so much more. Have we lost ourselves? Guys, every single one of you, we go through that stage of fumbling through confidence. That's how we learn things. But every one of you was meant to live for so much more. This life is the purpose. This life, living, is your purpose. And as you live, you'll have opportunities to serve people, help people, and have a lot of fun. But I'm telling you, each of us were meant to live for so much more. And if you're listening to this and this is ringing for you, I don't know who I quoted this song for. I really don't. I literally had wrapped up the podcast. I was ready to be done. And it was like, no, you need to include this song. So if you're fumbling through confidence, and if you're thinking like, do I have a second chance? Do I have a second try? The answer is yes. Every single day you wake up, it is a new page. It is a new slate. We just have a lot of thinking when we're sitting down to that new slate. If you could sit down to that new page, like a fresh new page, like a painter would sit to a fresh new page. I'm kind of going off their own page, but guys, every one of us, somewhere we live inside. And the only way we tap into that is by acting. The only way we tap into inside is by just starting to do the things that we think, oh, that might be fun. That might be fun. Oh, but somebody said I couldn't do that. Somebody said I shouldn't do that. We dream about providence. Stop dreaming about providence. The only way you get to providence, is by doing. And I'm not saying not to, say, hey, this is what I really want my life to be like. I have a statement I read every day. This is where I want my life to be a year from now. But then when I get the cue cards of the actions that I need to take to get there, I have to execute those. I have to do those. I almost picture God being like this really awesome supervisor. And he just hands cards. He says, hey, go do that. Go put that beam up. Well, then once we put the beam up, we go back. It's okay, cool. What next? But most of us just are like, yeah, no, I'm good. We ask for what we want, and he says, go do this. And we're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm telling you guys, the more we just listen, not think of it as this overarching thing that we have to know every moment of the day, but in this very moment, it's like, hey, what do I need to do in this moment? Remember, somewhere each of you lives inside. There's that little person trapped, inside each of us that's like, I want to go play, and I want to go play this, and I want to go play this, and I want to go play this. Those are what you enjoy. Those are your life purposes. And as you do them, really cool things will happen. Now, if you've made it to this point in the podcast, I'd like to invite you to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. I don't know how you got here, but that way, if you ever want to get back here again, it's right there for you in your subscriptions. And if you haven't already joined us, one of the really cool things that I do that's free for anyone that would like to participate is each Monday morning at 10 a.m. Arizona time, I host a group coaching call for Happy and Single. Anyone is welcome to come on, and you can even receive a little bit of one-on-one coaching time with me, depending on how many people are in the call. Now, every now and then that schedule changes, so you can go to the website happynsingle.com to be able to look at the schedule and also to be able to find the link to the Zoom room. Now, at the same time, if you would prefer a more one-on-one type of coaching experience where you can sit down and share your hopes and dreams and just kind of the stuff going on in your world, then there's another option available for you as well. Now, the bulk of my business is actually doing one-on-one coaching. if that's something you're interested in exploring, I've got a few spots open in my coaching practice. You can just message me on Instagram at the It's Possible Guy, and we can sit down and have a chat. And it doesn't matter where you're at in the world. I've worked with people across the world. I do everything over Zoom, so it actually makes it pretty easy. Thank you guys so much again for listening. And go out and live your adventure. Thank you.